Childhood sexual abuse lawsuit in New York, Your Rights. Attorney Andrew M. Stengel. Childhood sexual abuse is one of the most devastating violations a person can suffer. Its consequences stretch across a lifetime. Relationships strain, careers stall, mental health suffers, trust and connection fracture. For many survivors, civil litigation becomes a vital part of the path toward justice. A childhood sexual abuse lawsuit in New York delivers financial accountability and public acknowledgement of what happened. It also gives survivors a measure of control that the criminal justice system rarely provides. If you are searching for a New York sexual abuse lawyer, understand this. New York has enacted landmark legislation that dramatically expanded survivors' right to sue, regardless of when the abuse occurred. Even if lawyers once told you your case was too old, your rights may still be intact. Civil versus criminal justice. What sexual abuse survivors should understand. Civil litigation sits entirely apart from the criminal justice system. Criminal cases pit the government against the accused. Civil cases belong to you. You bring the lawsuit yourself and seek financial compensation directly. The standard of proof in civil court is, more likely than not, that is far lower than the criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. As a result, a civil lawsuit can succeed even without criminal charges. It can succeed even if a prosecution failed or the police never arrested the abuser. This distinction matters enormously for survivors. In practice, many childhood sexual abuse cases never reach criminal prosecution. Statute of limitations issues, lack of corroborating evidence, or prosecutorial discretion can all close that door. However, civil litigation opens an independent path to accountability, one that does not depend on the criminal justice system's choices. New York's Child Victims Act, Adult Survivors Act, and Gender Motivated Violence Protection Act. New York's Child Victims Act opened a significant window for civil lawsuits that the statute of limitations had previously blocked. Lawmakers recognized a hard truth. Most survivors do not come forward during childhood. Delayed disclosure is the norm, not the exception, and New York's legal system finally reflects that reality. Because of the Child Victims Act, survivors with long dismissed cases now have a real path to civil justice. Additionally, New York's Adult Survivors Act extended similar protections to survivors of adult sexual assault. Together, these two statutes mark a profound shift in how New York treats survivors. They prioritize access to justice over procedural barriers that long shielded abusers and institutions from accountability. Beyond those state level reforms, New York City's Gender Motivated Violence Act offers another route for survivors abused within the five boroughs. The GMVA allows survivors to sue perpetrators and enabling institutions for gender motivated violence, including childhood sexual abuse. Importantly, the law carries a longer statute of limitations than ordinary tort claims. It also permits recovery of compensatory damages, punitive damages, and attorney's fees. For many New York City survivors, the GMVA works alongside the Child Victims Act and Adult Survivors Act as a powerful tool for accountability. Still, lawsuits under these laws often involve complex questions about timing, institutional knowledge, and corroborating evidence. Many survivors also worry about privacy. Courts in New York take those concerns seriously. Well represented survivors can often proceed using pseudonyms such as Jane Doe or John Doe. Furthermore, protective orders can keep sensitive records out of public view. Institutional liability, suing the organizations that failed you. Childhood sexual abuse lawsuits in New York frequently target institutions, not just individual abusers. Schools, religious organizations, youth programs, foster care agencies, and medical facilities can all face liability when their negligence enabled the abuse. Additionally, these institutions typically hold far greater financial resources than individual perpetrators. Most also carry liability insurance that may compensate survivors even when the abuser has no personal assets. Holding institutions accountable serves a broader purpose too. When a school district, a diocese, or a youth sports organization faces civil liability for enabling abuse, it creates pressure for systemic change. Better screening, stronger supervision, faster responses to complaints. For example, survivors' lawsuits have driven meaningful institutional reforms across New York and the country. Which institutions can a survivor sue in New York? Schools and school districts face liability for abusive teachers, coaches, and staff. Religious institutions can answer for abusive clergy or religious workers. Youth sports programs face lawsuits over abusive coaches. Foster care agencies and government entities bear responsibility for children in their care. Medical facilities can answer for abusive healthcare providers. What damages can survivors recover in New York? Damages in childhood sexual abuse cases reflect the full scope of the harm survivors endured. First, survivors can recover compensation for psychological and psychiatric treatment costs, which often span decades. Lost earning capacity is a recoverable loss when the abuse disrupted the survivor's education or career trajectory. Pain and suffering is a compensable element of damages in New York abuse cases. Next, damages also include loss of enjoyment of life and the profound disruption to relationships and daily functioning. In cases where an institution actively concealed known abuse, punitive damages may also be on the table. Punitive awards punish the wrongdoer and send a message to similarly situated institutions. Of course, dollar values in these cases vary widely. Some New York survivors have recovered six figures. Others have secured multi-million dollar verdicts or settlements, particularly in institutional cases where internal records showed a pattern of cover up. Still, no survivor should assume their case is too small to pursue. A seasoned New York personal injury lawyer can evaluate the facts and give a realistic picture of what your lawsuit may be worth. The law firm of Andrew M. Stengel. PC stands with survivors. If you are a survivor of childhood sexual abuse in New York, you are not alone. The law firm of Andrew M. Stengel. PC is here to help you understand your options. We know this step can feel overwhelming. Privacy, compassion, and real attention guide every conversation we have with a survivor. Contact us for a free, completely confidential consultation. Email info@stengellaw.com. For more information, please visit our website, stengellaw.com. Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome.